Hello. I should probably get rid of my gum here. Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's having a great Friday. Welcome to the weekly live stream at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope if anyone's watching from anywhere else in the world, it is at least somewhat of a comfortable time for you. If not, too bad. I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, let's see here. Winter or Christmas break started this week on Wednesday, I believe. Started for the London school system. So my youngest son, James, who's there, he started. And so we're doing a training program with him all the way through the winter and Christmas break. So we got that all planned out. The London football team, of course, will be training right through. We're training all next week. We are obviously taking Christmas Day off, the 25th off, but we will be training the next day, and we are doing a great job. It is a very good off season so far. Every off season, I twist and turn a few basic things, but the basics always remain the same. But we're going to have to do a really good job this year as far as our off-season training. We're going to have to train harder, and we're going to have to train smarter, if we're going to be honest. So, but anyway, so far so good. So I'm pretty pumped up. We've only had, I think, we probably had 6 weeks of off-season training. We started training right away after our season ended in the playoffs. But I think of all those workouts, I remember we trained 3 days a week. I think we've only had one where it was a little, and I think the kids were a little tired because it was an early morning training session. But we've only had one that wasn't exactly where I thought it would be and where the effort would be. So the effort was still really good, if I'm going to be completely honest. So anyway, all right. So let's get started here. I'm sure my wife gave me a list of things to say, and I'm sure I don't have it around me. So, but the good news is at least I'm feeling a little bit better. So here we go. I still got a little bit sniffles here. All right, here we go. Jonathan Crossley says, hey, thanks for another weekly stream. Well, thank you for joining us, Jonathan. He has a couple questions. Have you ever messed around with the indoor rower, aka the Concept 2 rower, for conditioning? And what are your thoughts on Raiola? That's the guy's last name. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Signing with the Nebraska football team. With the Concept 2 rower, I've only done it a few times. It's important to note that the times that I did try it, I was well past my prime as far as, football and sports and stuff like that. And I have incredibly tight hips, like really tight. Like if I showed you how tight they were, you wouldn't believe them. And that really seemed to aggravate them. So, but like as anyone who's ever read anything I've ever put out with a lot of our conditioning stuff and assistance stuff, the most important thing is you do something that you'll be consistent with and something that you'll give effort with. So if you love the rower and love how it feels on your body, go ahead and do it. The only problem with any kind of machine, whether it be a bike or a rower or anything like that, is there's just that repetition of movement. I mean, it even happens with running and walking. So just be conscious of that, especially if you're going to do it for a long period of time. The older you are, that's going to create some problems. So one of the ways that I got around that, for example, if you're on the bike or if you're doing like a weight vest walk, is you can set your watch if you're doing a weight vest walk, but set your watch every 10 minutes, stop your walking and do some mobility style drills just to kind of get your body moving in another direction other than just doing the same basic thing over and over again. And obviously on a bike or rower, you can just look at the time and every 5 or 10 minutes or whatever it is, get off and move your body in a little different direction and start to feel good. So As far as the kids signing with Nebraska, I'm going to be completely honest. My son Mason told me about this, and I don't even know who he is. And that's no disrespect to him as a player. I'm sure Mason could probably remind me of it. But I am hoping that Nebraska gets their head out of their ass. And that's a whole nother ball game as far as what I believe. Now, I'm an outsider. And there's all kinds of factors that come into play there. Guys, remember, when something goes wrong, whether it be like, football team or, within the earth, like normal stuff, like a job or anything like that, it's rarely just one thing. It's an accumulation of a lot of things. The problem is a lot of us like to kind of say, well, it's only this thing. If we would just fix this thing, everything would be better. And it's never like that. So, as always, guys, I hope I don't wish ill on any football team, even if I don't like their coach or whatever, like their players or whatever else like that. You always want the young kids to do well. So, all right. Josh Lation says, Merry Christmas, Jim. That's right. Christmas is coming up, I believe, on Monday. Boy, did that creep up on me. I can't wait to open my kids' presents so I can see what I got them. How do you decide when to use 10-minute training blocks instead of PR sets for your young athletes? Well, Josh, we did a 10-minute block yesterday, and we used the first set, so the lightest set on week 1. We did this because it was super early in the morning, and we don't normally train in the morning. So I usually decide to do 10-minute training blocks. You ready for this? When I know the kids are going to suck. That's why we used a lot of them in the end season. We actually used 5 and 6 minute blocks. And when we use those blocks, we put a cap on the reps per set. We never, ever go over 5 reps. Anything over our first set last is usually doubles, sometimes triples, but mostly doubles and singles. And the reason, again, why I do that is I know if a kid, for example, let's say his final set is 225 on the bench press, and I know the whole team is tired, it's the end season or whatever, I know he can probably get it for 2 or 3 when he usually gets it for 10. He's exhausted. So what we do is instead of letting the kid know that he's tired and he's going to have that mental block the next time he goes out to practice, or when he steps out in the field, he's like, man, remember Wednesday when we benched, I used to bench 225 for 10. Now I could only do it for 2. It starts screwing with your confidence. So we generally use the 10-minute training blocks when I walk up there, and I can tell that the kids are not going to do very well. And it's a little mental game that I think every coach needs to play, regardless of what training program you do. Now, sometimes it's fun to do outside of that. For example, we've done 10-minute training blocks of singles with our training max, and we just try to see who can accumulate as many awesome reps as possible and stuff like that. So, but generally speaking, that's when you know the kids are going to be bad, and you don't want the kids to know that they're bad. There you go. Spike Spiegel says, can you say some squat supplementals? I assume you mean like supplemental lifts. Sure. Safety squat bar, front squats, front squats. What else is there? Any kind of box squat, low, high, medium, parallel, anything like that. Anything with a, odd bar. You can obviously change the the placement on your back. At Westside, we used a manta ray, which was a huge help for us. So anything that's basically a squat that's a little different than your normal squat. And for most people, the easiest thing to do would be to change the bar if you have a safety squat bar, or use a box and change the height. I really liked as a younger athlete, I think doing some higher box squats. And I don't think those things at all help your squat. I think it helps your hips and your glutes quite a bit. So I would point that in that direction. Although, as I said, I don't think for me, it never, and the guys I worked with, it never really helped their squat, but it helped their overall hip and leg strength, if that makes sense. Joe King says, how much weight training volume, I don't know, should be dedicated to training legs when conditioning 2 to 3 times per week? Now, Joe, you have to understand this is such a massively varied question. So some guys can handle just one good workout a week. Some people can handle, maybe 1 or 2 sessions a week of barbell lifts and maybe 1 or 2 of assistance. But generally speaking, if you don't know what to do, just one main hard lift on Wednesday and bookend the Mondays and Fridays with upper body stuff. And on Mondays and Fridays, you would do some lower volume, lower kind of hard, I don't want to say intensity, but that's when you do your dumbbell squats or your Bulgarian squats and stuff like that. So some assistance work. But that's what I would probably recommend for everyone to start. So again, your workout would be Monday bench, Wednesday squat, Friday press. And then you can pepper the Mondays and Fridays with some not that hard assistance work for your legs. Because remember, you have to prioritize everything. Not everything can be put at 10. You can't just turn up every instrument in a mix and just blast it in the red and expect it to sound good. Eric says, hey, Jim, have you ever done anything with the Henny attachment? I have no idea what a Henny attachment is. I'm getting older and looking for ways to keep working hard and keep from messing myself up. Here's to good health in the new year. Well, same to you, Eric. Listen, man, if a Henny attachment allows you to keep working hard and keep from messing yourself up, I'm all for it. So you're good to go, buddy. I am not familiar with that. I'm sure it's nothing new under the sun. So, yeah, you're good to go, buddy. Okay. Hey, Jim, thanks again for keeping this going. What are your thoughts on the Mike Mentzer's heavy duty programs? That's just high intensity training. Basically advocating 1 set to failure. I'm sure when I was growing up, when I was first learning about training in the late 80s, early 90s, the 2 big factions back in those days was the barbell crew, the bench squat, power clean, power snatch, bench press, stuff like that, deadlifts, and the kind of the machine crew, which that was mostly populated by the high intensity crowd, although it doesn't have to be. And so there was this, big pissing match between the 2. And so there's always a place for everything. The problem with the Mike Mentzer's heavy duty program, as far as I'm concerned, is that it's hard to maintain that for 6, 7, 10 years without having some major drop-offs. It's been my experience training young kids and training myself is that there's long periods of time, whether it be from other activities or just normal stuff in your life, where it's not feasible to train like that. It just, your body can't handle it. Your mind can't handle it, all that good stuff. We all like to think every day we're going to go, grind it out and all that other baloney. But the truth is it doesn't work like that. And what the truth is, even with my youngest son, we have to repeat weights. We have to repeat sets for long periods of time for him to develop physically to be able to move on. So we're not just adding 5 pounds a week and magically he's going to get stronger. We have to stay at the same weights over and over again. And we have to do, a few more sets than normal than if I was training, for example. Now he's he's 10, 11 years old when we were doing this. So, but there's always a time and place for it. And at the very least, I think it would be good for some people to do, because I think people need to learn how to train hard to failure. That's one of the things we push last off season, this off season, is we've learned how to push a set through to failure, because no one knows how to do that. They think they know how to do that, but they don't. So I think for a lot of people with their assistance work, you can really start understanding where failure is and how to really work hard. And I think for those young lifters, is with the assistance work, it's good because there's not much risk of an injury or something kind of, you're instead of squatting for a, to failure, so to speak, there's not much, if you're doing a dumbbell squat, you're not going to get hurt. You just put the dumbbell on the ground and you're good to go. So yes, I think there's a time and place. It's just not very sustainable over long periods of time. All right. Lone Wolf says, Merry Christmas. Thank you for your guidance as always. Well, as a lone wolf, I'm glad you take my my guidance because you're a lone wolf. Thanks for keeping this up. All right, well, thank you. I'm just reading these. I'm sorry. I should probably do a good job. Where do lateral raises fit in with assistance work? Lateral raises would fit in as part of your push assistance. And usually when we do lateral raises at the school, for example, we will pair it with front raised plate raises. So full range, you hold like a 25 or 45 pound plate. You go all the way overhead and really bring your upper back together. And we'll also do those with rear laterals. So we won't ever do just lateral raises on their own. We'll do front, side, and rear. That's essentially one set, however you want to break that up. But we would use that as a way of training if we did, for example, dips, push-ups, overhead press, dumbbell stuff. If I say, listen, these kids are tired, we're just going to do a couple lighter stuff for our shoulders, that's where that would fit in. So it would fit in with the push category and especially be important when you're really tired and you need a little break. Your body needs a little bit of a break. So anyway, I hope that answers your question. We used to do those at Westside Barbell quite a bit. You would take a dumbbells or plates or something and do, I think it was 20 front raises, 20 side raises, and 20 rear raises without stopping. So you finish your 20 front, go to your 20 side, and go 20 rear. Do that 2 or 3 times with no rest in between. And your shoulders get a nice little pump. And usually your shoulders don't feel horrible, especially after, you do your max effort work on those days. And, maybe your shoulders need a little bit of a break. So there you go. For me, I always did my lateral raises horribly. They totally smoked my traps, which I know you're supposed to just use your delts, but for the most part, it just pumped up my traps, which was fine with me. I didn't really care about my my delts. I figure if I did bench press 500 and overhead press 315 and, was really good on the football field, it didn't really matter what my delt looked like. All right. Next question. Hello, I think I overtrained my grip. This week I got right hand tendons inflamed. I guess it's the prowler drag work. I don't know what the prowler drag. Did you just drag on a prowler backwards? Have you ever got any injuries involving the grip? A little bit of overuse stuff from doing climbing ropes and doing rope chins and towel chins and stuff like that. All you got to do is just back off and choose exercises, no matter what they are, that don't absolutely smoke your grip. So, and just let your body heal. So, as always, guys, overload and front load your recovery. So don't just take 1 or 2 workouts from doing these exercises. Set a time. Say, listen, I'm going to take 2.5 to 3 weeks. I'm not going to do the exercises that seem to hurt me. And then I will come back to it and see how you feel. So don't just jump right back in the boat as soon as your injury feels good. Let your body heal a little bit. All right. How have you and the team dealt with the disappointing end to the football season? Have the training sessions been even more intense to get ready for next year? Well, there's only one way to deal with something, and that's with movement forward. So we decided to deal with it by being awesome. I've never had a training session this off season where the kids were down and out, even though we had a disappointing end to the year. But that has those kind of expectations and standards. You're going to get some disappointing things since our standards and expectations are very high. But when you have high standards and high expectations, you also learn that that this is part of the deal, and the only way forward is to go forward, and the only way forward is with a great attitude and great effort. So we've dealt with it by being continuing the forward movement. We always, even right through the winter, we will train outside as long as it's not too icy. When sometimes our field is, got 6 inches of snow. And so even then we will find a way to condition either in the weight room or in the school. We will make up something. So, but there's only one way to react to bad news, and that's to move forward. So whatever that may be. I remember there was a significant point in my life that I had some really horrible things happen. This wasn't training wise. This was personal. And I remember I decided right there and then I will give myself 24 hours to feel sorry for myself. And technically, it really wasn't 24 hours. It was a little shorter. So I gave myself a late afternoon all the way until bedtime to lament and flagellate myself and woe be me. And then I had a plan for the next morning. And when I woke up, got up, looked at my plan, and just started to go right from there. So I think it's important sometimes to do a little lamenting here and there, but it has to be a shortened time, and then you have to have a plan going forward. So again, there's nothing wrong with being human, guys. Something happens, and of course, it depends on what happens and your ability to deal with it. I mean, it's much different. If you lose a football game, then, your wife and kids die in a car crash. You can't compare those two things. So, but at the end of the day, you got to pick yourself up and you got to get moving. One of the things I've learned over the years is, your attitude, your effort, your life are really your responsibility. No one really cares, especially if you're a dude. No one's really looking out for you other than maybe your mom. So it can be tough sometimes, but when you realize that you as a person hold the keys to your, I don't want to say happiness, but to your life, when you are responsible for what happens to you in your own life, it is incredibly empowering. And you realize that you have the ability to make the changes. Again, this doesn't mean that you're going to go from, living in squalor to being Elon Musk in a year. But when you have a good attitude and good effort and you're always moving towards something, even if it's small, you will feel like you have purpose, and you feel like when you wake up in the morning, you have something to do. And I think that's super important. So when the chaos erupts, that's when you're needed most. When the chaos erupts, that's when you see your preparation. When the chaos erupts, make sure you have your T's crossed and your I's dotted in every area of your life. That way you don't have any more distractions than there already are. So, okay. I'm sure I just kind of talked too much on that one. All right. Scott Graham says, hey, Jim. Scott from Glasgow, Scotland. All right. I just listened to a band from Scotland the other day. When using push, pull, single leg assistance, is there a certain way to choose them based on the main lift that day? You might have a certain way of doing them, but when I train the kids, we don't really take, do things easy or hard based on what we're going to do the next day or what we did that day. We choose it based on the preparation and readiness for that current day. And also current thoughts on the triumvirate program. I think for most people, especially people that have other stuff going on, whether it be sports or your full-time job and family, I think more people should do stuff like that because I think you could a lot of people train harder than they can recover from. And you're better off backing off a little bit and doing really good things in your training than trying to pile everything on. And then after a couple of weeks or maybe 2 months, you just feel run down, tired, and you don't know why everything's going in the crapper. So I think more people, not everyone, but more people would probably benefit from learning how to train like that. Jerzen says, Jim, I've been using 531 for years, and it combines amazing with boxing. Thank you. Well, that's awesome. As always, guys, your training for sport is GPP, especially in the weight room. So only the very, very high-end, not athletes, the high-end lifters who have been training a long time and who are doing a sport may need SPP stuff in the weight room. But for the most part, the majority of people, it's just GPP. So you don't need anything terribly specific. Okay, regarding Mike Mentzer's program, this is Space Battleship, Alex wrote. I grew up strength training about the same time as you, and you're right. It seems heavy duty had a following mainly in the bodybuilding community. Well, yeah, it would not be. There was a few sports programs because everything I did was based on sports. Everything I read was based on sports. So the heavy duty style training doesn't really lend itself, obviously, to that style of community. And a lot of the stuff that I read that carried over was from the 50s and 60s, from the throwers like Randy Matson. I'm sure some of you old-time throwers know who Randy Matson was. Guys like that, Brian Oldfield, and their training, they were light years ahead of everyone else as far as training, especially the guys who lifted for football. Those guys kind of knew a lot of stuff well before everyone else. So that's where most of my information came from. So, all right. Spike says, I'm a 20-year-old Indian male. My maxes are blah, 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 and I'm following 531 for 8 months. But I feel like I'm pretty weak for my age. And as you say, there's no easy, fast way, but if there's anything I can improve. That's hard for me to say. Listen, the most important thing that you will learn with the strength training program is, one, consistency rules. Be patient, but be consistent. And there's going to be, high times and low times. So even during the low times, it's important that you keep on pushing through. That doesn't mean you have to do a ton of stuff. It means when it's time for you to show up in the weight room and give effort, you give your best effort. And it just takes time. And that's the way it goes. So the only other thing I would probably tell you is make sure you're building muscle. Make sure you're eating to build muscle. That doesn't mean you're a bodybuilder. It means that you, if you're only, I don't know how much he weighs, but listen, you get a young lifter needs to put muscle mass on. You rarely see a guy who's super strong who doesn't have a ton of muscle on him. So that needs to be a priority too. And the most important things are that you're consistent with your training, that your diet is solid. And when I say diet is solid, as always, the goal is to get the correct amount of protein every day and do that for a couple of years. So, and obviously you want your calories not to be too low. So be consistent, make sure your diet's awesome, and you're always consistent in the weight room. All right. Okay. Vicious asked, he's the one who asked about his tendonitis. He did the prowler drags. He would use a rope and handle it and just pull it with his hands. He writes, I thought it would develop my grip that way, just trying to train as many body parts as I can. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but just understand you don't need to do a million things all the time. So you might be doing other stuff for your grip that you maybe didn't factor in. And the other thing is you can't just do all your body parts kind of thing. Sometimes, as an example, as you've learned, you might be able only to do the rope prowler drag once a week or once every 2 weeks because your your grip or your muscle, or whatever you're doing, is not at the correct level of readiness or preparedness to do what you're asking it to do. So again, you guys ready for this one? Start light and progress slow. Your body needs to learn how to adapt, okay? And while it's awesome to think that you can just push a square peg in a round hole, as many of you guys have learned, it just doesn't work that way. Start light, progress slow. What's the major difference between workouts for football and wrestling, both off season? It depends on the level of lifter. With the kids that I work with, there's no difference. Our football players and wrestlers train the same way. All right. So again, that may differ once you get to college and you've had 6 years of solid training behind you, and you might have some glaring holes in your game. But for the most part, we try to get them stronger. We try to get them more muscular. We try to get them in better shape. And we try to get them fast, those kind of things. So not much of a difference, my friend. That's how you sell a lot of bullshit, guys. All right. You think the volleyball team needs something different than the basketball team. And then you realize your volleyball team, can't even do 25 push-ups, or they can't do 10 pull-ups, or when they squat, they can't even go all the way down to like a nice parallel position with a 30-pound dumbbell. You don't need anything that special, guys. All right. You just need to get generally stronger, general GPP, general physical preparedness. Okay. Heavyweight. The guy's so nice, they named him twice. He says, let's see, wish you a happy holiday. Well, you too, and Godspeed. All right. There we go. Okay, Matthew Brennan says, are there any conditioning recommendations for cold weather dwellers? Well, it depends on your what you have access to. The simple things would be just a typical cardio machine, whether that be a bike, a treadmill, stuff like that. And there's different variations of things like that. So, instead of doing all the crazy stuff, maybe like the prowler or sprints or something like that, you can always sprint on the treadmill, I guess. Maybe during the winter time, you let winter be your easy conditioning time. And so your training naturally periodizes, so to speak, with the weather. Okay. The other thing that we used to do is, and I got this when I was in Arizona, which is ironic since the weather there is always nice, but we would do, I wouldn't do. This coach that I knew, he would have a 3-lift assistance circuit. And then part of that circuit, he would jump rope or run on the treadmill or ride a bike. So as an example, he would do, dumbbell squats, dips, chin-ups, and then jump rope for 200 jumps. And then do that you got to be smart about how you do that. You're not just doing that to kill yourself and get out of breath. You're not trying to break a time. You're just trying to get your heart rate up. And you got to be careful with doing that stuff too. If you're not well conditioned, your form will go to poop. So it's important to pick exercises, the lifting exercises in that circuit that allow you to do stuff without fear of getting hurt. So again, any kind of assistance circuit would work well when you use 2 to 3 lifts and some kind of conditioning thing, like the bike or the jump rope or running or something like that. Or you can just use that time to do super easy, 30 minutes of airdyne or 30 minutes of a weight vest walk on a treadmill. So there you go. Okay. Marcus says, forget Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Do you have any recommendations for pickleball specific training? So this is pretty interesting. We used to play pickleball in high school as part of our gym class. We always have, you have badminton and we did cross country skiing. So we had a lot of different little sections of our physical education. And I love playing pickleball and badminton. Those were I love doing those things. But it seems to have picked up a lot of steam here lately, the pickleball, which I think is hilarious because I didn't know people cared that much about playing pickleball. And to be truthful, I don't even remember how to play it. I just remember the ridiculous name. Jonathan says, your thoughts on the impact of prescribed HRT on volume of training and recovery versus the older guys who are natural. I don't know really what you're asking there, Jonathan. So if someone's taking drugs, some testosterone, what are your thoughts of the impact? Listen, the one thing you got to learn is that whatever you read on a lot of this stuff is a lot of baloney. On taking tests and taking all this stuff. The most important thing you have to remember is when you're taking, like if you're taking HRT, so whatever that dose is, the goal of that is not to make you do more stuff. It's to make you do what you usually do and make it better. So, but again, I think a lot of people, regardless of if they're on HRT or not, they do way too many things average instead of doing 3 to 4 things really well in a workout. So again, the goal is not to do more. The goal is to do better. I wish people would understand that. Jesse Driscoll says, hey, Jim, I'm a subscriber to your forum, and I think it's absolutely gold. Well, thank you, Jesse. Everyone should go and join, in my opinion. Your knowledge, oh, boy, I like reading this. Your knowledge is absolute gold. Thank you for all you do. You're a huge moral model in my life. Well, not a problem, Jesse. I appreciate you. I appreciate you writing that. So thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoy the forum. Renell says, is there a scientific basis why we should train following a weekly schedule, or can one person train based on his or her recovery, like a 10-day cycle? Yeah. We at London, we train on I guess a 9-day cycle for the London football players. The one thing, guys, you have to understand that if your recovery is such that you need to extend your training week to 10 days or whatever, go ahead and do that. The one problem that people have is that people like to have some kind of rigid schedule, and I totally get this, where, on Mondays you do this, on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. So I think a lot of people, it's easier to plan their training and their life around that, where they know what they're going to be able to be doing and where they should be on those days. So maybe the scientific basis might not be proven in a lab, but I think it's much easier to plan your regular everyday life on a weekly routine. But that's not to say, the problem with that I see with that is everyone tries to fit everything in 7 days when the reality is they probably can't. So if you are one of those people who try to fit everything within 7 days, you have to be super smart and understand you don't need to do something every single day to get good at it. You just need a good overall training program that follows some basic principles, and you're going to get there. You don't have to keep on stuffing things down your throat. So, someone, the Flying Monkey says, do you feel an older lifter who's 58 years old would be better off lifting more of the 5-3-1 Forever style or more triumvirate as in the second edition? Well, you can combine those things. There is the triumvirate and all that stuff. And so, yeah, you can pick and choose all that stuff. And it's hard for me, again, to say you need to do X, Y, and Z. That's why I gave you kind of big picture overview, and then you can start choosing stuff. Listen, if you don't know what to do and you're new to the 5-3-1 program, do a good warm up, mobility, flexibility, all that stuff. Get the main lift in. I would pair that main lift, if possible, with some kind of body weight exercise. Doesn't have to be crazy. And then 2 to 3 assistance lifts, and then you're good to go. And sometimes make sure you choose those assistance lifts, and you're smart about that. The one thing that we do at London that I think works really well is we cap our PR sets on our main lifts. And so the other thing we do really well, or at least I do really well, is we use a very conservative training max that we're always making progress. And if we do have a bad day, it's we can adjust. So Frank says, are you worried about Big Brother coming after you since you're giving out your top secret government lifting info? Yeah, he's in reference to the ridiculous thumbnail I put up this week. So Alex says, don't you think only training once a week would decrease a lifter's exposure to the lifts, thus making it harder for them to perfect their form? No. If that was the case, then no one on our team could squat. So I don't know. Maybe it's my coaching style and how we coach the lifts and what we expect out of them. I think that has more to do with it than doing the lifts 900 times a week. So I think, again, one thing that we push, I expect out of myself and how I coach our kids is we are big on quality reps and understanding every rep's got to be absolutely perfect, dialed in, and awesome. If you do that, you end up getting pretty good. The other thing is we do a lot of assistance work, and we do a lot of, for example, dumbbell squatting. We do a lot of tons of jumping. We do devil's press. We do a lot of movements that kind of look like the movements. Obviously, we do a lot of dumbbell work and overhead press. So we're always doing the same, style of movement. So as a young kid, it's important that you learn how to do it, but I don't think it's like you need to have a physics degree or a physiology degree to learn how to do the lifts correctly. But maybe you do. I don't know. That's just not my experience as a lifter when I was younger, a lifter when I was older, and as a coach. So that's just not been my experience. Let's see here. Since you stopped training with the barbell, what do you think your big 4 lifts maxes now are? I have no idea. Not very much. Because I guess you're still training pretty hard, but not doing barbell work, and your maxes were really high before. Yeah. Well, they're nowhere near where they used to be. I can tell you that. And I can tell you I don't really care that much. It's not really that much of a priority. So that asking me what my bench press is right now would be like asking what my mile time would be when I was powerlifting, because to me it didn't matter. I still feel strong. I can still do some pretty strong stuff. And to me, that's what's most important, not necessarily displaying that with a barbell. Not saying the barbell is obviously the most efficient way to get stronger. That's why we use it at London. That's why my youngest son still does it, because that's the most efficient way to get stronger and probably the best way to get stronger. But for me, I'm 48 years old, guys. I don't need to prove anything right now with how much I lift, nor do I think I need it. So the only real lift I still test is the chin-up. And I don't really, just once a year, I try to do a chin-up with over 100 pounds. And as long as I'm doing that, I feel pretty good about myself. So, all right. Alex, in reference to Spike was the young kid from India, I believe. I know he was Indian. He says, Spike, definitely listen to Jim about diet. That is an X factor for hard gainers. You guys remember hard gainers? That was a big thing. Hard gainers, Alex goes on and says, are those who have trouble developing their muscles. You have to eat, no way around it. Yeah, that's one thing. When I was a sophomore in high school, I weighed 160 pounds, and I started religiously having my 3 meals a day like I usually did, because that's what you ate back in the day. And my dad got me some protein powder, weight gainer stuff. And so after each one of those meals, I would stuff myself on those 3 meals. I would drink a protein weight gainer shake with whole milk. And we didn't have a scale at home, and I never really weighed myself, but I remember weighing myself before I started doing this, and I gave myself 4 weeks. I didn't weigh myself at all. And after those 4 weeks, I feel like I didn't even really gain any weight. It was really weird. So I stepped on the scale, and I was a little over 180 pounds. So I had gained 20 pounds in those 4 weeks just by eating correctly, so to speak, or just eating more. And, obviously eating more protein, obviously eating some more fats and stuff like that. So it will make a huge difference, especially when you're super skinny. And everyone knows this stuff. So, but I can tell you from experience that every year at London, we have probably 2 or 3 kids, usually going into their senior year, that really make an all-out commitment to their diet. And the changes those kids' bodies make over even out the first 4 weeks are absolutely crazy. I mean, you can see it. And then when they extend that over several months, it makes a giant difference. The hard thing, guys, and everyone kind of knows this, is consistency just doesn't mean 4 to 5 or 6 weeks. Consistency means 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. And that's where things start getting rough. That's when things get boring, right? Eating the same basic stuff all the time. I mean, you don't have to, but it's just really easy to do that. So, but training is not easy, guys. Just like when we teach people how to trap bar or squat, it's not a comfortable position, guys. You're not just trying to put your body in the most comfortable position. When you're holding that position at the bottom of a trap bar or at the bottom of a squat, it's not a comfortable position. And you have to learn that in order to make progress anywhere in life, there's going to be a tremendous amount of discomfort, whether it be acute, like the deadlift, getting in the position for the deadlift, or just being that boring consistency that's going to, doesn't seem very flashy, but those things really do matter. So, all right, next question. Geez, it's 10:48 already. Would you recommend leg press or split squats as the better option for leg assistance? All right, I get questions like this all the time. The problem is it's not Sophie's choice, guys. You can do both. You can do leg press for a couple weeks or, on Monday, and you can do split squats on Wednesday or Friday or whenever. So don't limit yourself to just doing X, Y, and Z, guys. I know I harp on this all the time, but both have their place. And for some people, the leg press might be a godsend. As an example, for me, leg press was absolutely pointless. For other people, some big time lifters or anyone else, the leg press was a huge thing for them. For me personally, the Elite FTS power squat was one of the X factors in getting my squat up. It was one of the best things I've ever done. All right. For other people, it probably didn't even matter one bit. But it's important, especially during the off season, especially if you're an athlete or have kind of big global goals, so to speak, to mix and match different things so you get good at different things. All right. And that's really good with the assistance work. All right. Lonnie Watson. Hello, Lon. Hope things are well. I hope your wife's doing well, Lon. Anyway, he says he believes, does Lonnie, and I do too, that a great workout for men over 50 is doing the Cryptea 2-day-a-week program. I've written that out a billion times. I agree with you, Lon. Just make sure you're ready for that, because not everyone's physically prepared to do that. But if you do it, you kind of hit all your major bases physically and movement-wise. And if you do it right, which means you don't chase the clock, you'll feel better overall. Daniel Brophy says, Jim, what's the biggest change you've made training your football players over the years? Well, it's probably not a massive change. But the one thing that we've done differently over the years is the biggest difference. Our exercises pretty much remain the same. And, we still want to get stronger. We want to get bigger. We always want to be in good shape. We always want to jump. The biggest thing is we do everything on the clock. Every single set of a main exercise is done on a timer. Everything is done very militant towards time. You got 50 kids in there. You can't just give them a workout and tell them to do it, because it's not going to happen. Half the kids will get it done. Half the kids will fart around. And this holds kids accountable for every single thing they do. So we do everything on a timer. Everything is very, very, how do I put this? You got to get, for example, assistance work. We got, as an example, we'll do maybe overhead press and dumbbell squat. You got 10 minutes. You got to do 3 sets of each at least in 10 minutes. And you're expected to get all that done. When you're doing the main lifts, every single set is done on a timer. So you have to get your rack set up. You have to get all your weights ready. And I say, go. First set, we got 5 reps. Go. And then the first guy goes, and then the weights change, the second guy, and maybe the third guy. And then they wait around for their second set. I give them instructions on what, how many reps we're doing or what we're doing there. And then, so everything's on a timer. So everything is done on it, so that every set's accounted for, basically. So that's the big thing. When we did that, our workouts got much, much, much better. And our workout time was much more efficient. We got more done in less time. So we're not more done. We got the same thing basically done in less time. And by doing that, you improve their recovery, because they're not spending all day in the weight room. And the kids that maybe do want to work a little bit harder, they're not doing 300 sets of X, Y, and Z waiting for Slow-Mo McGee to get finished with their 3 sets of each exercise. Tim McCain says, hey, I'm coming off major surgery. Oh, sorry to hear that, bud. I've known Tim for a while. So he writes squats. He cannot do squats. The thoughts on sled work for leg strength. I am a huge fan of that, especially if that's all you can do. So, Tim, the best thing to tell you is if whatever you're doing for your injury, man, embrace it, love it. I had to do the same thing. I did a lot of tons of prowler work. And I did both heavy, light, medium, and just had a good time with it, so to speak. I thought up of different challenges. For example, I did 30 days of the prowler, and I pushed it a half mile around my neighborhood. So every day I get out there and I push it for half mile. So I push it for 50 steps, take a break, 50 steps, take a break, until I was done with the half mile. So there you go. Someone says, how many days a week are you training right now? I train every single day. I do something every single day. Jim, what are your thoughts on single leg exercises? I think they are good. I think some people put a little too much stock in them. People think that they're going to be the be all end all, especially in sports. But as I always say, if a kid can't do an exercise on 2 legs, definitely don't put them on 1 leg and have them do an exercise. So we want to make sure their base and foundation of training and strength is really solid before I load them on their single leg. Our single leg exercises are the prowler, the stairs, and hills. Those are our main single leg exercises at London. All right. What's the most you've ever heard of a 17-year-old squatting? I don't even know. I don't remember. A friend of mine said he squatted 605 when he was 17. He's full of shit. All right. He also said he did 605 with a safety bar. All right. Just let him believe it. It doesn't matter here or there. I had a guy tell me when he was in high school, He did like a 900-pound squat. And I was like, oh, my God, it must be awesome. You're the strongest person who ever lived. And he's like, yep, I was. I don't think so. Listen, I've been hearing that stuff ever since I've been a kid, and when you're a kid, you're an idiot and you believe all that stuff. And then you get older, a little bit older, and then you start fighting that stuff. And then you get a little bit more and you're just like, who cares? It doesn't matter either way. I doubt he's squatting 605. I mean, maybe he did, but it has nothing to do with the price of cheese in Denmark, so I don't really care. So don't worry about it. Let's see here. We got 5 minutes, so. Okay. This may have been covered before, so please forgive me. But I will be starting back doing power cleans next cycle. Is there a template you suggest? I'm very conservative with training max and efficient bar speed. If you're going to add in hang cleans, power cleans, snatches, power snatches, all that stuff, I would generally do them as your first lift of the day. I have a whole set and rep combination that we put on the forum. It was this year, and I'm not exactly sure where it is on the forum. I'm sure someone could dig it up, heavyweight, if you ask for it. And just, again, start light and progress slow, especially if you're pretty strong and you start this new movement, because you're going to have a tendency to kind of muscle everything up. And I think that can kind of be your downfall too. So just be smart about doing that. And you may want to start with hang cleans. I think they're a little bit easier on the body and a little bit easier on the back, especially if you're going to do squats and deadlifts at your level. That's just been my experience. So I would probably recommend hang cleans unless you really, really want to go off the floor. Ian Johnstone says, your overall thoughts on starting strengths and weaknesses of the program. I think it's a great program. I think it's important that anyone who starts training has a template to follow that's kind of non-negotiable, that allows you to just tell you what to do. I would have to look at the program exactly. And I think if you're going to do starting strength or any program as a young lifter, I think it'd be nice to have someone helping you along that'll kind of corrects you on things that might be, you don't want to turn those things into habits. So there you go. Thomas Jenish says, are you doing assistance work after your walrus work? Not after. I usually do some stuff before, some neck, some ab work, face pulls, stuff like that. I'll do a couple sets here and there. Or if I'm feeling pretty run down, I will just do very light assistance work with bands and stuff, or leg curls with my ankle weights and stuff like that. So it's nothing crazy. So, but for the majority of my time, if I'm going to be honest, when I was doing a ton of walrus work, weight vest work, I did absolutely zero, except for neck. Okay. Someone writes, thank you for all of the knowledge. Well, I appreciate that. I love the program and have made huge gains on it. I love doing a main lift and then a walrus for my assistants. Any suggestions on the style? No, I think you're good to go. I don't know what you mean by any suggestions, but again, just make sure that what you're doing for your assistance lift is you're not going crazy on the volume if you're not ready for it just yet. So, and always have on your assistance day, always have a standard that, if you're kind of catch yourself trying to do too much, trying to change this and that you have a standard. So when your mind starts going racing and you're trying to do a million things, make sure you have a standard that you can always come back to that says, well, if I know I'm getting ahead of myself or I'm thinking way too much, I'm just going to do this. So always have that standard, that rock, so to speak, that anchor that allows you to get back and be put in your place. Someone writes, why do people say novices need to run, does it say LP, IP programs until they hit the 1, 2, 3, 4 plates on the main lifts? I don't know. I've never heard people say they need that. I've heard people, I'm sure on forums say that, but I don't think anyone listens to those people anyway. So you do what you want to do, man. You do what gets flips your cookie. Don't worry about what other people are saying. You'll be better off that way. Mark says, hey, Jim, thanks for doing these. Well, thank you, Mark. He's been a huge fan since about 2012. I've gone back and watched all the old ones. Well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate the support. Thank you. Okay. Marcus writes, my wife is wanting to start lifting, and she has no background in training. She asked me to give her a basic plan. Would you approach this any different than starting a new kid for sports? The only thing I would probably change is if she has some kind of physical limitation. She's got some prior injury, stuff like that. So, and then you have to tailor it to maybe she can't do certain lifts, or maybe you don't have access to certain lifts. But generally speaking, with my kid, we always did something for the lower body. So it might be a squat, a trap bar, a deadlift, a dumbbell squat, box jumps, something like that. We always do something for the upper body push, and always with an upper body pull. And then we based their volume and the reps and stuff like that based on the readiness, their preparedness, and the exercise they chose. For example, if we're doing chin-ups, James started with doing singles, right? And then if we're, for example, doing rows, we'll do higher reps because we could adjust the weight on the rows. So it depends greatly on the exercises that you're doing. But generally speaking, something for the lower body, something for the upper body push, and something for the upper body pull. You don't have to be perfect as far as trying to fit this movement in, as long as it's just a nice basic overall full body style program, and that you're not chasing weights, so you don't have to improve every workout. You don't have to, you don't have to do barbell squats if your wife, for whatever reason, really is not good at them or can't do them correctly. She may need to do other things to get her body prepared. My youngest son was his barbell squat stunk. So we took that out. He was really good at the deadlift. As far as technique wise, he was really, really good at dumbbell squats. And we did that for like 6 to 8 months. And we came back to the squat. His body was much better conditioned. His legs were stronger, all that good stuff. So when we started squatting, everything kind of fit right in its place and you were good to go. So I don't like pushing exercises or movements that the person can't do just because you don't know you're not a good coach or you're not creative enough. You have to be smart to take things out. So here's some stuff that we did for the upper body push. We did push-ups, obviously, could be elevated. Dumbbell bench press, dumbbell incline press, dumbbell overhead press, barbell press, and then the bench press. For upper body pull, we did rows, chest supported rows. Obviously, chin-ups and pull-ups, we always change the grip. So, here, 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 and then wide. And we also use a rope for my son. And we did barbell curls as a pull. And then the lower body stuff was obviously the squat, the deadlift, the trap bar, different kinds of jumps, dumbbell squat. And then we did prowler as one of our main lower body exercises. So, and it was basically, if the weather was bad, we wouldn't push the prowler. On days I knew the weather was good, maybe we're like, we'll just take advantage of it. So it wasn't like a ton of, I wasn't programming like 6 months of it in in advance. He's a young kid. The most important thing that he's consistent and he does something. So if he really wanted to do, we've had days he really wanted to deadlift. So like, yeah, we're going to deadlift today. That's going to be fine. Or if he wants to hit a new PR and squat on something, all right, let's do squat. So a lot of it has to do with more that you're consistent and the things that you're able to do and not just kind of trying to fit all the stuff in all the time. So, but yeah, that's kind of how I train the kids too. We always have every workout session. We have something for the lower body, something for the upper body push, something for the upper body pull. And I know that if I hit all those things along with some conditioning or running, really it's running, and we always put some jumping in there and stuff like that, then I know at the very least they have a well-rounded strength program, and we're amazingly consistent with that. So, all right, it is 11:06. Does anyone have any more questions? We'll wait around a little bit here. I don't think so. Okay. Good times. All right, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up then. Oh, we got one more here. One more. Eddie Field says, I'm a high school football coach. Is there anything new you guys added? No. We changed how, and I discussed this on the forum, we extended our week to a 9-day week. So as an example, Mondays, or we started the training session with, this is Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So squat, bench press, trap bar. The next week we did bench, squat, bench, and then just alternated. So some weeks we did 2 upper body main days, and some weeks we did 2 lower body main days. But the big thing is not that we're adding stuff, Eddie. It's that I am just militant about this. Just, I guess the best way to say it is, I don't think you need to add stuff. I think you need to take what you're already doing and raise the standards even higher. Raise your form standards, raise your effort standards, raise your technique standards, stuff like that. So it's not so much that we added, some fancy exercise. It's that when we deadlift, over the years, we've changed kind of how we deadlift. Our standards became harder and harder. Not our standards for strength, but how we do each and every rep. The same thing with the squat and the bench press. So we got better at doing the basics. And the basics, then I'm not just talking about the lift and stuff, but like the basics of how you train. The effort and attitude has to be dead balls on, all right? So I think that's the most important thing. So there's really nothing new that we added. We just have more attention to detail, and that comes from me. That comes from the top. And it also comes from the juniors and seniors that are going to be the leaders on there. If they're doing those things correctly, the young guys sees them. So, all right. What are your thoughts on complex training, squats supersetted with the jump? I think they're fine for most people as long as you have the appropriate rest and that their body is prepared for that. You wouldn't put a young kid doing that, at least I wouldn't, who's just learning how to do squats. So I think there needs to be, you can't just have everyone do that. Remember, I got 50 or 60 kids in the weight room at once. Not everyone can do stuff like that. Ryan Whiteley says, if you have a person that keeps getting hurt while squatting, can you just drop the squat? I guess it depends on why they're getting hurting or why they're getting hurting. Why they're getting hurt, you may have to address that. But as they say in the NFL, the best ability in the NFL is availability. And the best way to train is the best way to have good workouts is not being hurt. So maybe in the time being, you can address that issue and then take that lift out. But you try to get some kind of squatting motion in. For example, I've had kids who can't barbell squat. They have prior injuries and massive limitations, but they can dumbbell squat or they can belt squat. And So instead of having them barbell squat and getting hurt or doing something stupid or not, maybe they can only squat with a light load that it doesn't really make a difference. We will take that out and use another movement. So maybe instead of barbell squatting, Ryan, you have them do some type of squatting motion and make sure that they're at least getting that some kind of squat in there. Tom Bryant says, hey, Jim, what assistance, this is for me personally, do you do after your basic chins, push-ups, and squats with walrus training? Again, most of my assistance is done before. So that would be neck work, abdominal work, or any kind of core work. Maybe some face pulls, some tricep push downs, some band curls. It's did I say leg curls? Yeah, ankle weight leg curls, stuff like that. But it's real basic. It's maybe 2 sets, 3 sets of each at the most. And it takes about probably 10 minutes. So, yeah, it's not crazy. It's just getting movement in, just getting my body ready. So I don't go crazy with that stuff. Okay, Brian, this will be the last question here, guys. It's 11:11. Boring but big, 3 days a week or 4 days a week? The answer to that question is very simple. Yes. So yes, you can do boring but big 3 days a week, or you can do it 4 days a week. I don't know, Brian, what your schedule looks like, but the appropriate days a week is based on what your body can handle, what you want to do, and what you can recover from. So there's no way of really there's no way of me answering that question without knowing you and training you personally and seeing your rep speed and your quality of your reps and all that stuff and seeing what you do. So I can tell you guys from experience that sometimes 3 days a week works infinitely better than 4 days a week. And you just have to accept that, guys. You don't have to train 90 times a day, okay? Especially if your goal is to get stronger and bigger with the barbell, you have to recover a little bit of stuff, okay? So, but anyway, Brian, just understand that there's no real obvious answer to that. So anyway, guys, I hope you have an awesome Christmas and Christmas Eve. I hope you have an awesome time with your families and friends. I hope you enjoy the food that you eat and the company that you keep, all that good stuff. And I hope you guys give some good presents this year, or at least tell people that you're grateful for them to be in your life. Give them a big hug, give them a big kiss, all that other good stuff, guys. So anyway, I will see you next Friday. And I am so looking forward to Christmas in my immediate family. So that's my wife and my young son, James. Mason is off in Florida right now with his mom. But so just, James, myself, and Juliet, we get up early and we spend all day just opening presents and having a great time and eating cinnamon rolls and feeling like crap from the cinnamon rolls. Anyway, have a great training weekend, guys. Do something dumb if possible. And I hope you guys, throughout this winter break, guys, do some kind of conditioning challenge if possible, okay? I love you guys. I appreciate every one of you. Have a great Christmas. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.